On Monday, the World Meteorological Organization released its State of the Climate report to coincide with the opening of COP25, the gathering of world leaders in Madrid to focus on the climate crisis and the Paris Climate Treaty. At the opening of that conference, the UN Secretary General delivered the report. He said, and I quote, "The findings are clear. The last 5 years have been the hottest ever recorded. Sea levels are the highest in human history. Ice caps are melting at unprecedented speed, and the oceans are becoming more acidic with all its consequences. Biodiversity on land and sea is under severe attack. Climate-related natural disasters are becoming more frequent, more deadly, more destructive, with growing human and financial costs. Drought in some parts of the world is progressing at alarming rates, destroying human habitats and endangering food security. Every year, air pollution associated to climate change kills 7 million people. Climate change has become a dramatic threat to human health and to human security. In short, the Secretary General said, climate change is no longer a long-term problem. We are confronted now with a global climate crisis. The point of no return is no longer over the horizon. It is in sight and hurtling toward us." Close quote. I wanted to read that because while we talk about specific aspects of the climate crisis here at Fire Drill Friday, it's important that we keep the big picture in mind. We need to understand that 100% of the climate scientists agree on this. There aren't two sides to the story. There's one side, the science. And we need to be clear about the biggest cause of all of this: fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal, and the plastics, pesticides, and fertilizers that are made from, although they're welcome. Maybe it's the future for their grandchildren they care about. Maybe they love birds, and they should know that 2.9 billion fewer birds exist in North America than were here in 1970. Maybe they don't know that all the climate scientists are in agreement. Anyway, today we're going to focus on one of the most immediate and horrible results of the climate crisis: climate refugees. The latest estimates, speaking of birds, they're welcoming us into the park. Oh, they're so beautiful. Look at that. Wow. They love all of us. We should love them too. Anyway, listen to this. The latest estimates predict that as many as 200 million climate migrants are going to be here in 2050. 200 million. This is also a human rights issue. Climate migrants routinely face life-threatening hardships, discrimination, and repression. And who are we as a people, as a country, if we turn our backs rather than open our hearts to our global neighbors, seeking shelter and safety for their families? We have to think about what we would do in their shoes. We would do the same thing. So to start us off today, I'm going to introduce a friend of mine who will then introduce our first climate migrant expert. I want to introduce Kira Sedgwick. Yes. Kira is an actor, a producer, a director. Best known perhaps for her starring role in TNT's The Closer. Also, we all know her from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. For the Closer, she won a Golden Globe and an Emmy. And she's directed episodes of Grace and Frankie. And I can tell you, it's really weird being directed by a woman this beautiful. Please, and she's a great director. Please welcome Kira Sedgwick. Whoa.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Oh, right on. I'm so glad to be here today. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about why I'm here. When my first child was born, I became, perhaps for the first time, obsessed with the future, that it would be a good one for my child, or at the very least, that he have a sustainable planet to live on. This was 1989, and the new term greenhouse effect was plastered across headlines, and it felt like we had a moment to change the course of history. People were educated and energized to move away from our addiction to fossil fuel. And tragically, politics got in the way, targeted disinformation abounded, and we lost the moment. But we have another moment now. The conversation is more urgent. It's more frightening than we could have imagined, but we find ourselves asking questions that demand answers and solutions. And while I often despair deeply about our current administration's rollbacks, inaction, and the insanity of denying the silent science of climate change, I am deeply encouraged by the conversation, the real news, the truth that is coming to the fore, and most insistently and louder than all of these is the passion and rage and the tenacity of the young people, some of whom we will be joining later today and are right here. Thank you all for being part of the solution today. I would like to introduce Reverend Malik Safir. Reverend Malik is a Methodist minister, a scholar, and a community organizer. Safir works with a diverse array of people of faith at the grassroots level, developing leaders who speak truth to power and waging campaigns to eradicate poverty and achieve racial equality in the American South. He is dedicated to uniting the social and environmental justice movements under the banner of climate justice. Reverend Safir is a Green Faith Fellow and Toyota Together Green Follow. Welcome him, please.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Jane, for allowing for us to use this platform as a way. Thank you for allowing us to use this platform, Jane, for an opportunity to speak truth to power. Thank you, Kara, for introducing me with the correct pronunciation of my name. I know sometimes it's challenging, but Safir is a unique name that means bringing clarity. And so I want to use this platform today to talk about bringing clarity to what we call climate and environmental justice. It is time now, as we stand here together, to recognize that we can no longer delay climate and environmental justice. We need climate and environmental justice now. Do you believe this? Do you believe that our time is now? And we cannot delay any longer the need for justice now, because we are dealing with situations where people are suffering throughout this world from climate change. Not only are people suffering, but the planet is suffering from climate change. And when the people and the planet suffer together because of one unique problem, it is time to divest from fossil fuels. It is time to divest from putting people over, profit over people and profit over the planet. It is time for us to unite under a single banner: climate and environmental justice now. Why? Because as moral and spiritual leaders, we are called to have compassion for those who are the least of these, those who are suffering the most, and they are the front line, the poor, the black and brown, the people of color communities, the indigenous throughout this land and throughout this world, who are the first experiencers of this type of injustice. And when it comes to us seeking refuge, seeking sanctuary, will we be prepared to provide them what they are seeking? If we are prepared to provide them what they are seeking, then we should, at this moment, stand together and realize that we need to do a call to action by our nation and to these corporations, that you will cease and desist from engaging in extraction industries that are polluting this planet and causing migration throughout the world. If we agree to this, then we will be calling all of our people together, wherever we stand and wherever we unite throughout this country and throughout this world, to begin to speak up, to challenge individuals to change their habits of consumption and begin to engage in investing in their personal lives into climate solution. We will seek to tell our institutions, you must change your practices and begin as institutions to no longer support fossil fuel corporations. We will tell the systems in place and power that your policies must change to come up with climate and environmental justice solutions, that we will see a change in this world for the better. Will you unite with us today to catch on fire? That this will not be a fire drill Friday that will remain on Friday, but it'll be a fire that is set throughout this world to consume the hearts and minds of people on this planet, to change their focus from injustice to justice, from lack of compassion and lack of empathy for those who are suffering to compassion and also empathy for those who are climate refugees. Stand with us now as we stand together for this change.
Where's the microphone? I got so carried away I didn't even know I had the microphone in my hand. Okay, everybody, now I'm going to introduce another friend that you all know, Taylor Schilling. You know her from Orange is the New Black, for which she was nominated for an Emmy and 2 Golden Globes. Please welcome Taylor Schilling.
Hi, I am so excited to be here with you today. I'm so excited you're all here. As this movement is shouting so beautifully, our house is on fire and we are all being impacted. The climate crisis, as Jane explained earlier, is a human rights crisis. And we have a responsibility together, working together to tend to those members of our community that are being hit hardest and first by the climate crisis. Poor people, people of color, our indigenous communities, and hold responsible the people profiting from this crisis. The banks that invested in the fossil fuel industries, which decimated our environment, are now making money on the refugee crisis they perpetuated by investing in companies that run for-profit refugee detention centers and prisons. In addition to profiting financially, these companies supporting for-profit detention centers, like the one that we're all going to be visiting today, continue to be responsible for the deaths of migrant children in their care, including Carlos Gregorio Hernandez Vasquez, a 16-year-old Guatemalan immigrant who was dangerously ill when immigration agents put him in a holding cell in an overcrowded processing center in McAllen, Texas. He was diagnosed with the flu upon arrival, and his fever ran to 103 degrees. The attendant on duty said that he should be checked on in 2 hours. None of this happened. Instead, Carlos was moved to quarantine in another facility, and he was found dead the next morning. We only know about this because of recently released video. Leaving a 16-year-old to die a preventable death is an atrocity. Let's stand up for Carlos today. Let all families of detained migrants know we are doing what we can to make their voices heard. By standing in solidarity like we are today, we can show our government that we believe that dignity and love and life matter far more than turning a profit. Thank you guys all for being here today. And I am so honored to introduce Liz Butler, who is the Vice President of Organizing and Strategic Alliances at Friends of the Earth, and an organizer with Shutdown DC. She brings over 25 years of experience organizing and campaigning on critical issues with a focus on both corporate and legislative campaigns. Please welcome Liz Butler.
My name is Liz Butler. I'm so excited to see how many people came out today to make sure that we're sending a really strong message to the people who are driving the climate crisis. I'm with Friends of the Earth, but I'm also part of a group of folks who came together to shut this town down on the global climate strike. Last summer, when there was a call to action for the global climate strikes, a whole diverse set of us here in DC said the decisions are made here, the climate criminals are here. We need to shut down business as usual to send a message that we need climate action now. This town spends too much time worrying about making sure that the fossil fuel companies are taken care of and not the people around the planet. And all of these things are connected. We know a couple of things about today. We're all out here to make sure that it's not just the oil companies and the coal companies that get held accountable, but the companies that give them the money to do it. We're talking about companies like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase Bank, and the secret ones none of us know about, like BlackRock. Yes. How many people have heard of BlackRock? Hey. These people are driving in funding the climate crisis. They are one of the largest funders of the fossil fuel industry. They're also funding deforestation that is driving the fires in the Amazon. But let me tell you, they don't stop there. They understand this is all connected. They also fund the company that has a database of immigrants in the United States so that ICE can track people for detention and deportation. It's ridiculous. So don't confuse yourself that it's just the fossil fuel industry. They would not be able to do this without the money that they're getting from the financiers, including Chase, BlackRock, and others. So we need to be here today to send an incredibly strong message that we want them to stop funding the climate crisis. We want them to defund forestation, and we want them to stop cooperating with ICE, abolish ICE, and actually work with the people. And if they don't, we're going to shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down. I look forward to the rest of the day where we get to shut it down.
Thank you, Liz. And now I want to introduce another friend, a wonderful actor named Maura Tierney, who has starred in shows like ER and The Affair, for which she won a Golden Globe. Maura has also appeared in a lot of films, including most recently The Report. Please welcome Maura Tierney. Hi.
grateful to have been included in today's events. And I'm here briefly because I think it is my responsibility as a citizen to demand change from our political leaders in the face of this crisis. And I want to thank Jane for reminding all of us what it means to be a good citizen.